23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck was originally from the city of El Segundo in California and was the second of her parents' 4 children and their only daughter. Sports was her big passion: long bike rides down the beach, competing on the swim team, playing water polo, and she was a regular face in the crowds of her team's football games. When it came time for her university decisions, California-loving Mackenzie wanted to see more and feel independence she didn't think she'd get from staying close to home. She settled on a place almost 700 miles away, the University of Utah, to major in kinesiology and pre-nursing and minor in health. She was accepted into Alpha Chi Omega and was quickly consumed much of what little free time she had. Members had to maintain a 2.5 GPA and participate in philanthropic endeavours as well. That, alongside the 2 jobs Mackenzie worked, meant she was always busy, and now in her 3rd year, she decided to drop some classes and be a part-time senior. She lived off campus in a little townhouse with her pets, her hedgehogs, guinea pigs, and cat, Nova. Her friends said she didn't do anything by halves and could always see the funny side in things, even throwing a birthday party for her cat Nova, with champagne for her friends and a cake made of cat food. She made everyone wear party hats and watch as she unwrapped presents for her. Kennedy was one of Mackenzie's sorority sisters and described her as a nurturer and very loyal. She was always smiling, so much so that when she had braces, she cut into her lips because she smiled and laughed so much. Kennedy said she was one of those people always cooking for you. She wants to make sure you're getting fed. She wants to make sure if you need a drink that you have a drink. It just made her happy to look after people. As the summer of 2019 started to creep in, the already stretched thin Mackenzie was faced with a new tough challenge. She lost someone especially close to her, her grandmother. In mid-June, she flew out to Los Angeles for her funeral, and on June 17th at 1 a.m, she landed back at Salt Lake City International Airport. At 2 a.m, she sent her mom a text saying, "Landed. Love you, mama." And just a few minutes later, she was looking for a ride, either using Uber or Lyft. When her mom Diana replied to her, she noticed that the usually blue iPhone message had been delivered as green. Perhaps her phone had died, or she was struggling for signal in the busy airport. But her daughter never got back to her. Over the next few hours and into the following day, as more people reached out with condolences and supportive messages, they too were met with silence. However, it didn't seem that odd that she wasn't replying. She did have other things to think about, of course, and probably wanted space. But her old school friend Kennedy said that despite this, something about her friend's lack of response was bothering her. Mackenzie wasn't opening up her Snapchats, there was nothing on social media, and even with the things going on, she felt sure that her friend would have posted something somewhere or replied to at least one text, especially as she knew people would be worrying about her. On June 20th, Mackenzie's dad Greg requested a welfare check.
Yeah, I'd like to get, if possible, have a wellness check done on my daughter, and I've been trying to get a hold of her, and her phone just tends to go to voicemail. I was just wondering if I could have somebody maybe go by her house and check on her.
Authorities went to her house and found her car parked outside. But there was no answer, and they couldn't see anything through the windows. They started making calls to her friends, her job, and her university. She had now missed a very important exam, shifts at work, and a wedding back in California. A week would soon have passed since Mackenzie landed, with still nothing from her. A proper search finally got underway. Police first went to the airport where they found her on the cameras. She had got off the plane, was by herself as she collected her bags, and did not stop to talk to anyone, and no one seemed to be following her. About 40 minutes after she landed, Mackenzie got a ride via Lyft to Hatch Park. This was about 9 miles from her townhouse.
There's a lot of mysteries here. 23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck had just returned to Utah after coming to Southern California for her grandmother's funeral. Her parents said they last heard from her when she texted them after her flight landed safely last Monday. After that, she ordered a lift to an address in North Salt Lake, but friends say Lueck didn't live there and they don't know why she went there. Lueck has been absent on social media, and her friends and sorority sisters have been passing out flyers hoping someone will come forward with information. Lyft told CBS News they're actively assisting law enforcement with their investigation and that there were no irregularities with the ride. She was dropped off and the driver continued taking other customers immediately. The family is from Southern California and they're now working to get subpoenas for her phone records to hopefully try to piece some of this together.
The Lyft driver had now been found, and he said he did indeed drop her at the park safe and well. She said she was meeting someone. He did think it was a strange place to be asked to go, but nothing really stood out to him about her demeanour, and she didn't seem upset or nervous. Mackenzie had even made a point of admitting that it was an odd place to be dropped off, but she didn't elaborate and carried on texting someone. When he pulled up, he had spotted a car already parked, and as he was helping her with her bags, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed someone get out of the car. But it was so dark and far away he couldn't say anything about this person. It was just a dark, blurry outline. As he got back into his vehicle, he heard voices and said it seemed as if whoever this person was knew Mackenzie. He couldn't remember any words, but there were no raised voices, and it seemed that this person was here to pick her up. He drove off and carried on with his pickups. What he said checked out, all confirmed by his phone data, and police were satisfied he was nothing to do with her being missing. Her friends were concerned that the police were still saying they had no reason to suspect foul play. Huge groups of volunteers were now handing out flyers to every single car that went past, talked to every news outlet, and every single day they were out.
Missing posters continue to pepper Salt Lake City streets, hoping to find an answer to the question, what happened to Mackenzie Lueck?
We encourage the public to help us answer these lingering questions, such as who is the person she met in Hatch Park? Does Mackenzie have an alternate phone that she has used in the past or is using? Does she have social media accounts that we don't know about? Is anyone in contact with Mackenzie online currently or within the last week?
Now the SLCPD says that they don't even know the make or the model of that car, or even whether it was a man or a woman behind the wheel that morning. They say they have a tip line established. If anyone knows anything, they should call 801-799-4420. And so far, about 125 tips have come in on that line. They have also asked the FBI for their assistance in this investigation.
Police finally got a big tip-off from a former Salt Lake City police officer turned private investigator, Rob Joseph. He had seen the 23-year-old's picture and suddenly remembered he had actually had an encounter with her a few weeks before she vanished. Rob and his friend had randomly bumped into Mackenzie in a bar. He described her as being chatty and friendly, and they spoke for about an hour over some drinks. As they talked, Rob said that Mackenzie had told them she had recently joined a dating site called Seeking Arrangement. This site, with almost 50 million users worldwide, advertises itself as the largest luxury dating site for the beautiful, wealthy and successful, billing itself at the time as a platform for so-called sugar daddies to meet so-called sugar babies. Rob said she didn't go into detail about what she was looking for, but she had had 2 pretty serious relationships prior to this and was now single and just living her life. This was a pretty big lead and a huge surprise for a lot of people. They had no idea Mackenzie was on this site, and it seemed that she had been keeping a lot about her life very secret. They felt sure that the person she had met in the park was likely someone linked to Seeking Arrangement. Rob Joseph found Mackenzie's profile, and her last activity on the site was June 16th, a mere matter of hours before she went missing.
Police say there's been no activity on her phone and her bank accounts have been untouched.
A look into her finances showed them that the plane tickets had been paid for by men she had met on the site, and there was a random bank account where $300 had been deposited by someone else too. Mackenzie's dad, Greg, told police that after she went missing, he found a separate bank account in her name, something they were all totally unaware of. Using these profiles, they began jumping through social media, person to person, page to page. Mackenzie had very recently followed a page on Instagram called Fatherless, and it was via this and phone records from her network provider they found a number she had been texting. The phone was linked to a Salt Lake City home, which was owned by 31-year-old Ayoola Ajayi, known as AJ. He was recently divorced, lived close to Hatch Park, and according to his profiles worked as a support analyst for Dell, and was a part-time model. From the outset, everything seemed almost too normal. AJ had no criminal history that they could see, shared a home with a couple of people renting his basement, which was an Airbnb, and he spent most of his time working. But some very disturbing things were about to come out about him, and police soon felt certain this was the person behind whatever had happened to Mackenzie Lueck. AJ had attended Utah State University on a student visa, but only sporadically went to his classes. After this, he got a green card so he could stay living and working in Utah, and alongside his day job, he had also written a novel. The plot of which was a young man who witnesses 2 murders and must decide if he wants to pursue a life of crime. He talked about burning bodies, and in his author profile he said, survived a tyrannical dictatorship, escaped a real-life crime, travelled internationally. His now ex-wife lived apart from him and was staying in Dallas. She said she had stopped talking to him completely because she was so terrified of him. He would often threaten to have someone kidnap her and kill her, and she had had to change her number, block him on everything, and eventually divorce him in January 2019. He had been investigated for rape in 2014 and assaulting a woman in 2018, but no charges were ever filed. AJ told police that he had never spoken to Mackenzie and had no idea who she was. When asked why his number would be linked to her, he told officers that the text may have been sent by someone staying at his house. A local contractor named Brian told detectives that AJ had messaged him about building a hidden, soundproof room with a thumbprint lock behind a secret door in his house. AJ told him money was no object, but he needed a quick turnaround. He wanted to get it all finished before his girlfriend came into town. He asked why, and AJ said he wanted a place to hide his alcohol, as his girlfriend was Mormon and didn't know he drank. Although Mackenzie was brought up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, she openly didn't practice it. Who he was referring to remains unknown. Brian said, the reasons he was giving me just didn't add up to me, and I had a gut feeling, and I just had to walk away. He was only inside the house 30 minutes. When me and my nephew left, we got in the truck and I looked at him and I was like, that was weird, right? And he's like, yeah, that was hella weird. We're not doing this job, right? And I was like, hell no, we're not. The plan never went ahead, but AJ continued to message him about it. AJ then voluntarily walked into the police station with a slightly different story. He admitted that he and Mackenzie had actually talked briefly after meeting on seeking arrangement, although she had stopped talking to him soon after he made contact. He said,
so she stopped responding once I sent out my pictures. I thought maybe she just doesn't want my type of race, so I just stopped responding to her.
But he had finally admitted to communicating with her, and this was enough to issue a search warrant at his Fair Park home.
Is there anyone else in there? Let's make sure. Put on gloves.
They noted that the mattress was missing. His house smelled like bleach, and there were multiple cameras in every room. He rented out some of his basement area to a couple of people, and they were asked to leave the property while everything was going on.
Hi, it's the police department. Are you renting this room?
Yes.
Okay. We are going to be serving a warrant on this house. Is there anyone else in this room?
No, nobody's here, just me.
Just you?
I mean, am I going to be able to come back in here?
It may be a while.
As police searched more, AJ stood outside watching on.
Yeah, if you want to move to the shade, that's fine, but don't move the door.
Oh, okay.
I don't want anything moved.
He soon asked if he could go somewhere else, as he didn't want people staring at him.
But I will be there, and I don't have a phone, but if you guys walk in, I will sit where you can see me.
All right, AJ.
Good luck, man.
So is that where you'll probably be?
Yeah, unless you want me to stay, I'm happy to stay.
No, you're welcome to leave if you want to. If we wanted to come talk to you, is that where you think you'll be?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good luck, man.
As he walked off down the street, one of his neighbours told officers that they had smelled something horrible around the time Mackenzie vanished, and had looked outside to see him pouring gasoline everywhere. They showed police where they had seen it. They found the remnants of a fire and a huge, freshly dug hole. A cadaver dog reacted quickly, ran straight to the patch of dirt and lay down on it.
Highway 6410.
And then here's some more. Well, that's a piece
Highway
of paper.
641102.
But does that look like a bone or...
They also found a bone which they quickly determined to be human, and what looked like part of a scalp, with hair still attached. A charred iPhone and some burned clothes lay around too.
Hard to determine. I haven't touched anything, but looks like a newer black, possibly Apple phone.
They seized AJ's devices, which later turned out to be full of child abuse material, children as young as 4 years old.
What's going on, man?
So, detectives are ready to talk to you about everything that's going on real fast, so if you want to come, I'll give you right back to the house real quick.
But there's Fox News over there.
I know, I'm going to drive you back in my car. It's a Camry, so...
But
We'll stay away from the news.
Yeah, we're not going to go by the news.
But I don't want my face on the news.
I will do that so it doesn't, okay? So stand up real quick.
We're just gonna...
Oh,
get you up,
are you arresting me or something?
No. Stand up.
Then why
You're gonna be detained for a little bit.
You're being detained, but just for a second, okay? I got to put you in handcuffs just while we're driving.
Per policy, we're
just gonna go talk to detectives for a little bit.
Why is he detaining me?
Because you need to talk to detectives, and I need to transport you back. So my policy says every time someone's in my car, they will wear handcuffs. So that's why they're...
But there's a news over there.
They can come right back.
We're probably not going to take... We'll take you to another spot so you're not by the news.
Okay?
We just hung up
How
on
did
that.
the news find out?
We were wondering the same thing.
I just want to make sure there's no way.
AJ was found in a nearby park, detained and taken back to the station for another interview. What they found was damning, but there were no test results yet. Over the following couple of days, phone records put both Mackenzie and AJ together at Hatch Park, within less than 1 minute of each other. His car was also seen pulling into the park at 2:48 a.m. 10 minutes later, her last text to him was sent, and her phone was then turned off at 2:59 a.m., never to be turned back on.
So think about that for a second and put yourself in their shoes, and then start being honest with me. We have had a week and a half now to prepare, and we have been very busy because I care about Mackenzie, and I want her. I think you did care about her. I agree. And I know that there's more for you to tell me, and you're holding back, and I don't understand why. AJ, I just told you that your phone records and the location put you up at the meet. Do you think, honestly, and expect me to believe that you ended that conversation and somehow you and her location end up in the exact same spot?
Oh, I'm not doubting you. If I see that too, if I'm in your case, I would be asking myself, what are you asking me right now?
It's not a miraculous question.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
Stuff doesn't just happen.
No.
Yes, I agree with you.
I'm telling you to explain that. And so far, you have not.
Well, how do I explain something I don't know?
Are you saying you don't know or you don't remember? Because those are two different things, AJ.
AJ's phone put him at his home at 3:07 a.m. AJ said to police that they were wasting time focusing on him and they would soon realise it was a dead end. They were closing in though, and the once so confident AJ was starting to seem less so. Finally, his phone gave them a key location. A day after Mackenzie got into his car, he had driven to an area in Logan Canyon, 85 miles away from his house. This finally gave them a place to look for Mackenzie, but the area was massive and it would be a tough task. To their relief, they did not have to look far. In part of the river they found Mackenzie's burned purse, bag, ID cards and some more clothing. The items found in his home were all a match to Mackenzie.
In Utah, a tragic conclusion in the search for a missing college student. Police found the charred remains of 23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck in the yard of the man accused of killing her.
Several charred items that were consistent with personal items of Mackenzie Lueck. Other charred material was located, which has now been determined to be female human tissue.
Near to where her ID was found, Mackenzie's remains were finally discovered in a shallow grave in a wooded area. It was clear that her arms had been bound behind her back by a zip tie, and some rope was found next to her too. She had a hole in her skull and part of her scalp was missing, which had been found in his home, and the autopsy confirmed she had died from blunt force trauma.
We are filing charges of aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, and desecration of a body in the homicide of Mackenzie Lueck. This is one of the most difficult phone calls I've ever made, as both Greg and his wife Diana were devastated and heartbroken by this news.
Police arrested 31-year-old Ayoola Ajayi on suspicion of the kidnapping and murder of Mackenzie Lueck. His first hearing lasted only 2 minutes and he did not enter a plea. But the prosecution had a vast amount of evidence against him, and his ex-wife said she was so disgusted and upset at what he had done, she was more than willing to testify against him in court. Upon hearing that the death penalty was on the table,
the man accused of killing University of Utah student Mackenzie Lueck has pleaded guilty to murder.
AJ accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to aggravated murder and desecration of a human body. In exchange for his guilty plea, some other charges were dismissed. These included aggravated kidnapping and obstructing justice. The plea bargain also resolved other charges he was facing in 2 unrelated cases. He admitted to forcible sexual abuse, assaulting a woman in March 2018, and this was now dropped. And given what they had found on his devices, he had been charged with 19 felony counts of sexual exploitation of a minor. These charges too were dropped. AJ admitted to the court that he had planned on killing Mackenzie before he even met with her that morning. Before he left his house, he turned off all of his security cameras, and once he and Mackenzie arrived back at his home, he tied her hands behind her back and started strangling her. Mackenzie put up a fight and begged him to stop, but he threw her onto her stomach and used a belt to carry on choking her. She had died of blunt force trauma to the head, but he did not go into detail about this. He then burned her body and buried her in his backyard, before digging her back up and moving her out to the canyon. AJ addressed Greg and Diana Lueck in court. "I'm sorry for what I did. I deserve what I'm going to get. I know this won't bring her back." To this day, the prosecution and police are still confused and in the dark as to why he did what he did. The district attorney said, "Most homicides we deal with have clearly identifiable motives: financial gain, revenge, perceived wrongs. But that doesn't exist in this case. Without having met her in person before, he already decided to murder her. The only conclusion that evidence suggests is that Ayoola Ajayi simply wanted to know what it felt like to kill. This was murder for murder's sake."
Today, the man who pleaded guilty to murdering 23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck, Ayola Ajayi, was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
There is no sense of perfect justice here. There's just an accountability. And the one thing that our community can rest assured with and her family can rest assured with is that Mr. Ajayi will spend the rest of his life and he will die in prison.
Though the process is over, the memories and the scars for the Lueck family will always remain.
We are blessed and honored to have Mackenzie in our lives for the last 23 years.
The judge says Ajayi pled guilty to the 3 most severe criminal crimes. He will serve each of those crimes consecutively.
One of Mackenzie's friends, Katie, added, "No person, regardless of their gender or dating life, deserves to die. Mackenzie is not responsible for the death. There's only one person responsible for that, and we're here to hold him responsible. If Kenzie knew what was going to happen, she would not have met with that individual at the park. Her death is not her fault, and for people to say things other than that is hurtful. It's hurtful to other victims out there. It just doesn't make sense." Her friends and family set up a non-profit organisation called Mackenzie's Voice. Her friend Ashley said, "We learned that there's not really a handbook or manual or toolkit for friends or family members when their friend goes missing.
When Mackenzie went missing, the first thing we said is, what do we do? What is there to do?
Helping other families and friends figure out what to do when their loved one goes missing is the motivation behind Mackenzie's Voice. The nonprofit organization, started by the same friends who launched the initial search for Mackenzie last month, wants to provide that toolkit with resources such as media lists and guidelines for statements. Mackenzie's Voice also wants to provide educational opportunities for young men and women about safe online dating practices.
We were fortunate in a way where her case has gotten a lot of attention, and I don't know if we would have found her or this person if it didn't.
So they're paying it forward for Mackenzie.
She wanted to be a nurse, very service-oriented, and that's why we really want to pursue this nonprofit, because we know it's something that she would have wanted us to do.
Mackenzie's mom said that her daughter was a real spitfire, a loyal friend to the end. Her friends carry on throwing birthday parties for Nova, always remembering to laugh about the good times and fun memories they had together. Ashley added, "This person took away our friend, but he will not take away our strength. We will continue to advocate for victims of violence in our community, and will continue to use Mackenzie's Voice for good."